5-year-old girl was imprisoned until she was 18. When she was released, her family was gone. The only thing her father left her was an old wooden box. But inside was a check for $50 million, 49% of the shares of a listed corporation, and a letter written to her. The letter revealed the truth about their harm that year, along with a photo of her father and a group of people. The letter said that it was the group of people in the photo who harmed their family, but her father hoped that she could forgive them and live a normal life. However, the girl stared at the people in the photo and swore that she would take revenge. So she changed her name to Emily. Emily then rented a seaside villa filled with childhood memories in an area where the rich and powerful live. The current owner of this villa is Victoria, one of the enemies who harmed Emily's father in the past. So Emily followed Victoria to a hotel, but Emily accidentally discovered that Conrad was also there. So Emily immediately had an idea. Emily pretended to be a waiter and entered the room. Emily took advantage of the moment when they weren't paying attention to add something to Conrad's soup. Conrad soon had a heart attack and collapsed to the ground. The ambulance quickly arrived to take him away. Victoria stood at the door, still scared. Emily, who saw all this from afar, deliberately approached and greeted Victoria. Victoria, who had always done bad things, immediately turned around and ran into the crowd. When Victoria arrived at the hospital, she found out that her husband only had food poisoning, nothing serious. She clearly remembered that he said he was going to play golf, but she found her husband wearing hotel pajamas. She immediately understood everything. Victoria angrily pulled her husband back and told him not to do it again. At the charity auction later, Emily also entered the scene with the help of her friends. Emily deliberately approached Victoria. Victoria also introduced her best friend Lydia. Emily said bluntly that they met yesterday at the hotel, and she hoped Victoria's husband's health was better. Victoria, standing next to her, saw her best friend suddenly silent with a confused look on her face. Victoria immediately understood. Victoria angrily went to the auction scene. Victoria not only returned the expensive moon that Lydia gave her, but also asked the security to chase Lydia off the boat. From then on, the friendship of more than 10 years between the two officially ended. At this time, Emily targeted Daniel, Victoria's only son, because according to the video of Emily's father's trial, that year, the woman he loved the most was the first to harm him. But Emily did not know that her true identity had been discovered by others. That person sneaked into Emily's house. Emily was cautious and rushed to attack. It wasn't until that person said his name was Nolan that Emily remembered that he was the skinny man who picked her up when she was released from prison. Emily asked Nolan why he was here. Nolan replied that he wanted to help Emily, but Emily said that Nolan couldn't help her. Nolan then threatened Emily that if she didn't accept his help, he might become a stronger enemy than them. In order to get closer to Daniel, Emily went to the stadium to watch Daniel play polo. At the polo party that Victoria organized for her son, Emily met Bill, her father's best friend, when he was alive. They hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years, so Bill didn't recognize Emily at all. Emily took the opportunity to approach Bill and talk to him. Bill also happily agreed to invite Emily to dinner the next day. Seeing Bill leave, Emily secretly remembered it in her heart, because that year, the one who harmed her father was him. In the past, Bill and Emily's father were as close as brothers, but at the crucial moment, Emily's father was betrayed by Bill. That was why Emily's father always regretted trusting the wrong person. In order to continue to gain Bill's trust, Emily went to his company the next day under the guise of investment. Bill also knew from Victoria that Emily was very rich. In order to lure her into the investment trap, he deliberately took her on a tour and bragged about the profits of customers who entrusted his company to invest. But Emily was cautious and refused. At this time, Emily received news that the coastal villa she was living in had been bought by someone else. She thought for a moment and roughly guessed who bought the house. Then Emily stopped Nolan in the car and asked him. He also admitted that the house he bought had been transferred to her name. His purpose was only to help her get revenge. This reason made Emily even more curious. At this moment, a car stopped by the side of the road. Emily immediately turned around and hugged Nolan. The person who got out of the car was none other than Bill. Bill only glanced at Emily and Nolan. Then Bill walked into the restaurant. In the restaurant, Bill asked about the relationship between Emily and Nolan. Nolan was a big figure in the investment world, but Emily changed the subject. Emily asked Bill to help her buy Occam Cellular shares. Emily said that she received insider news revealing that the shares were about to rise sharply. Bill was half believing about it. As a result, the next day, the media announced the cooperation between Nolan's International Group and Occam Cellular. This news immediately caused Occam's shares to skyrocket. Emily also took the opportunity, so she called to ask about investing all her money and buying as much of this stock as she wanted. At first, Bill was skeptical, but Nolan had vouched for him and he saw the news. So Bill immediately believed that this was a great opportunity to make money. Bill immediately mobilized all of his company's investment funds. People started buying Occam's stock. Just when Bill was daydreaming about becoming rich overnight, a video of Nolan himself appearing was posted online, claiming that the news of the partnership was just a rumor due to misinformation from insiders. This caused Occam Cellular's stock, which had already peaked, to plummet. In just this short period of ups and downs, all of Bill's investment money was gone. This time, he was more panicked than ever. In order to not anger investors, he quickly asked his employees to follow a confidentiality agreement. If they valued their work, they would keep the news secret. They told the investors that today was a sunny day. If the news leaked, they would all be unprepared for the consequences. But Bill did not know that Emily was at home holding a list of his company's investors. Emily was calling them one by one. Bill was quickly arrested by the police. The sentence he was waiting for was probably a long prison sentence. At this time, Victoria also received Emily's background information from a detective. Seeing Emily's huge assets, Victoria always felt that she was not simple. In order to clarify Emily's true intentions, Victoria decided to invite Emily to her house for a direct conversation. The next day, Victoria invited Emily to her house, and the two prepared to talk. But before they could say much, Conrad brought Congressman Kingsley to their house. Emily recognized Kingsley as the prosecutor who had firmly convicted her father in the past. It was also because of Emily's father's case that Kingsley was called a hero by others. Since then, Kingsley's political career has been on the rise. This time, Congressman Kingsley came to campaign for election, but Victoria really hated Kingsley. Everyone discussed the election together. Kingsley decided to make a speech for the election campaign at party, but at this moment, the assistant showed Kingsley a tablet. On it was a video of him entering a building. This interrupted the discussion. Conrad also saw that there was a problem, so he quickly went to ask Kingsley. Kingsley stammered and said there was no problem. At this moment, a second video was sent. It was Kingsley's private video. This time the problem was big. Conrad quickly asked again. Kingsley had to tell the truth about everything that happened. The video was of Kingsley and his ex-girlfriend, but they had discussed it beforehand. There was no way she was uploading the video. Although he didn't know who was doing it, the most urgent thing was that this video absolutely could not be leaked. Otherwise, he would not be able to continue his political career. Just when everyone was worried, the election support party outside had officially begun. Kingsley was supposed to dress up and go up on stage to start his campaign speech. But Kingsley had just finished his opening words when he could no longer continue. Kingsley looked at the audience with a tense expression without saying a word. In addition, Kingsley's speech had been edited by someone else. At the same time, a pregnant woman wearing a red dress appeared at the party. She stood there silently, looking at Kingsley with a passionate look. Kingsley's assistant knew something was wrong as soon as he saw the woman, so he quickly broke up and took her away. Kingsley's speech on stage could not continue. The most important thing was that the content of the speech could not be leaked. Kingsley had no choice but to announce that he would withdraw from this election and would not run for re-election. When Kingsley returned backstage, his assistant informed him that the reason his ex-girlfriend had come to the scene was because he had just arrived. But Kingsley immediately denied that this was impossible. The assistant also said that she said Kingsley had been texting and emailing for the past few months. Kingsley also wanted to take care of the baby and even said that he would leave his wife. This time she came here because Kingsley had sent her a plane ticket and a red dress. This made Kingsley even more confused. But anyway, Kingsley's political career ended like this. When Emily got home, she saw Nolan waiting for her with a smile on his face. It turned out that they had done all of this. First, Nolan had hacked computer. Then, Emily had sent the video to Kingsley's tablet. As for the source of the video, Emily said that she had bought the building where the woman lived in order to get revenge. Moreover, Emily had sent the video to all the media. Emily wanted to ruin Kingsley's life and destroy everything he had. Nolan was immediately scared when he heard Emily's words. This woman was really scary when she became cruel. At the same time, Conrad's assistant also brought the investigation report. Although they had not yet found out who had sent the video, the email exchange with the woman had been sent from his own computer. This made Conrad worried. This was definitely not him. So who was it? The next day, Emily went to find her best friend to talk. Emily accidentally learned that Victoria was going to hold a psychological counseling tea party. The invited speaker was a psychologist, the same female doctor who had imprisoned Emily for more than 10 years. Emily immediately signed up. This made Victoria very curious. Why would Emily attend such a counseling session? The private tea party quickly began. The attendees were almost all her patients. The psychologist was going to show her latest charity achievements. But something unexpected happened. The video presenting the initial results turned into images of the patient's treatment process. Among them were unacceptable words and secrets that would never be told normally. Everything was exposed to the public. Victoria appeared in a video and revealed her disappointment with her daughter. Sometimes she wondered if giving birth to this daughter was a mistake. This caused Victoria Victoria's daughter, who was happily walking with her mother, to immediately collapse on the spot. Victoria could not control her anger and pointed at the female doctor, cursing and threatening her. When Victoria got home, she immediately called her assistant Frank. Victoria told him to find a way to deal with female doctor because she knew too many things, especially secrets that had been buried for more than 10 years and could not be known to others. When Emily got home, she found that Nolan was still waiting for her. Moreover, he even applauded her for her clever tricks. It turned out that changing the video was all planned by her. In order to find a chance to get revenge, Emily went to the female doctor's clinic for continuous treatment for a year. Emily later accidentally discovered that this person recorded the entire treatment process of the patient and also installed hidden cameras in the treatment room, so Emily used technology to copy all of her treatment videos. When Emily learned that this female doctor would come to the charity tea party, she immediately used her friends who were the event organizers to swap the broadcast CDs. However, to avoid being implicated, Emily not only broadcast her treatment videos first, but also secretly created a website and uploaded all the videos she had collected. Nolan said that Emily hurt others because of revenge against Victoria, but he said he knew that this time she only wanted to deal with the female doctor alone. But Emily also did not know that the real plotter who sent her to prison for 13 years was Victoria. He said that he would open a private clinic for her with a suitable and stable number of customers, but in return, this girl had to receive special care in a suitable place. At this time, Victoria was also looking for the mastermind behind this, but the police suddenly came knocking on the door. At first, she thought something had happened to her daughter, but the police told Victoria that the female doctor had been kidnapped and her clinic was robbed. The computer hard drive was also taken. There were many witnesses who testified that Victoria had threatened the female doctor's life, but Victoria said that she had only said it out of anger. Moreover, Victoria had an alibi. Immediately after the news broadcast, the reward for the female doctor's kidnapping was announced. According to the police investigation, the female doctor's kidnapping was most likely related to the creator of that mysterious website. It could be the same group of people. Hearing this, Nolan and Emily looked at each other and said that they did not do this. At this time, outside an abandoned warehouse in the suburbs, a woman was screaming frantically. This woman was the female doctor. But just one day later, the news of the female doctor's rescue was on the front page, all thanks to an anonymous phone call that provided a clue. But when Victoria saw the information about the female doctor's rescue, she revealed a confused face. It was not because the female doctor knew too many secrets, but because the police had investigated that the warehouse where she was being held was property owned by their family. In order to divert the public's attention, Victoria decided to hold a charity dinner, and the invitees were the victims of Emily's father's case back then, because that year, Emily's father was suspected of treason and caused a plane crash. In order to investigate the truth, Emily got a ticket to the party through her friends. When Emily was about to leave, Lydia, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly knocked on the door. Lydia said that she wanted the house back, but Emily refused without hesitation. Lydia threatened Emily. Lydia said they both had their own secrets and she would find out Emily's secret. Then Lydia appeared at a private party hosted by Victoria. Lydia said she came to apologize and hoped to make peace with Victoria, but Victoria could not accept someone who had betrayed her. At this time, Emily also came and warned Lydia that it was impossible to get the house back. Emily had packed all of Lydia's old belongings and sent them to her. Lydia failed, so she had to leave. However, the next day, Victoria discovered that her husband had transferred a large sum of $10 million to Lydia. Victoria angrily asked her husband what he meant. He said it was to protect her because they had shared a secret for 15 years. Lydia knew all the truth about the plane crash that year and many other secrets. Now Lydia was chased away by Victoria. Lydia was already very lucky not to report them. This 10 million was just to buy peace. Victoria heard this explanation and had nothing to say, but she didn't know that although she looked calm on the outside, she was actually worried. That night, Conrad went to Lydia's house and angrily asked her why she came to his house to cause trouble. Lydia said that she just wanted to make up with Victoria. She wanted to return to the upper-class circle there. Moreover, Lydia also said that if they didn't meet the above conditions, she would expose their true faces at party tomorrow night. Conrad was threatened, so he picked up the photo of Lydia and Victoria on the table, angrily threw it on the ground, and left. But Lydia calmly picked up the photo. Suddenly, Lydia stopped and quickly took out a magnifying glass to examine it again and again, and discovered that the waiter behind her looked very much like Emily. Lydia looked at the photo and smiled meaningfully, but Lydia didn't know that everything that had just happened was recorded by Nolan with the camera on the shelf. The next day, Nolan immediately went to Emily and said that Lydia had seen her in a group photo. Lydia had also gotten the list of employees at that time. Emily's first reaction was not stress or fear, but she asked Nolan how he knew. Nolan hesitantly admitted that he had put a camera in Emily's house, but yesterday, she didn't know why it appeared at Lydia's place. At this time, Emily also understood that yesterday she had sent a bunch of old things to Lydia. Maybe the camera had been moved to that time. Now Emily had to get the photo back. Emily told Nolan to hack into the catering company at that time. He must remove her name from the employee list, because that year, when Emily had just been released from prison, she used her real name as a fake waitress to see the faces of these enemies. If Emily was discovered now, her entire revenge plan would fail. At this time, Conrad went to Victoria and Frank. Conrad said that he had tried to talk to Lydia, but this time, Lydia didn't want money. The only thing Lydia wanted was to be accepted back by Victoria. Victoria guessed that Lydia was also a patient of the psychiatrist, and the only video of her was not leaked. Maybe Lydia was the real culprit behind the kidnapping. Victoria then immediately sent bodyguard Frank to Lydia's house to look for evidence. Victoria planned to take the initiative to capture Lydia while she was at the party to stabilize Lydia. The charity party quickly began. Lydia arrived at the scene as a special guest. Lydia threatened Emily that I knew her secret. After Lydia left, Emily hurriedly contacted Nolan. Emily learned that there was only one copy of the employee list that year, and it was at Lydia's house. Emily was about to go get it herself when Daniel arrived. Daniel was the most important link in Emily's revenge plan. Emily had no choice but to ask Nolan to get the copy. It was Lydia's turn to speak. In the audience, Victoria and Conrad were extremely tense. Their eyes were fixed on Lydia on stage, as if she were a devil. But until the speech ended, Lydia did not reveal their story, but instead she kept praising their achievements. After the meeting ended, Lydia looked for Victoria. Lydia hoped that her goodwill could move Victoria. Lydia hoped that Victoria would forgive her and accept her back. But Victoria kept insulting and mocking Lydia. Lydia returned home sadly. When Nolan forced his way into Lydia's house, he found it dark. He quickly got the list and the photo from the surveillance video. He also retrieved the hidden camera. He was about to go home when he heard the alarm going off outside the house. Nolan was scared and rushed to the rooftop to see. Nolan was so scared that he immediately ran home. He connected the surveillance camera to the computer, but when he saw the content inside, he was extremely surprised. Early the next morning, Nolan hurriedly brought the computer to find Emily to discuss countermeasures. When Emily saw the surveillance video, she was also extremely shocked, only to see Frank sneak into Victoria's room to search for something inside. He quickly found the CD that was swapped at the tea party in the cardboard box on the table, and the newspaper reported that Senator Kingsley had withdrawn from the election. Looking at these things, Frank determined that Lydia was the mastermind behind the doctor's kidnapping. What was even more frightening was that Victoria's computer had a speech exposing everything Victoria and her husband had done before. Frank felt the situation was urgent, so he quickly reported the situation to Victoria. She asked him to immediately take all the evidence away. At this moment, Lydia returned home with a sad face. Frank immediately rushed over before Lydia could react. Lydia was startled and struggled with Frank. Unfortunately, she was no match for him, so she screamed for help and rushed upstairs. Then the scene that everyone had seen happened. Frank felt that the danger had been completely eliminated, so he breathed a sigh of relief. Frank left a message for Victoria, telling her that Lydia had committed suicide. After Nolan finished watching, he said he wanted to hand the video over to the police, but Emily said that it was not in her best interest. Now Victoria and the others believe that Lydia is the mastermind behind all the events, so this is very beneficial for both of them. But in order to better carry out the revenge plan, the best thing is to remove Frank from the game. This video is very useful for Emily. The next day, Conrad was watching the news about Lydia when he suddenly received an email. Inside was the surveillance video of Lydia's murder. This made Conrad fall into extreme fear. In order to get rid of this matter, Conrad hurriedly found Frank. Conrad gave Frank a large check and arranged a private plane for Frank to leave quickly. But Frank felt that he had served their family for nearly 20 years, but now they wanted to kick him out. Frank left angrily. When Conrad returned home, he found his wife still talking about Frank, so he immediately played the video of Lydia's murder for her to see. This made Victoria immediately feel scared. She did not expect Frank to be so cruel. But at night, when Victoria was preparing to rest, Frank sneaked into their house. Faced with Frank's constant pressure, Victoria felt scared. Victoria backed away and told Frank about the video. Luckily, a call from her husband upstairs helped her escape. After Frank learned about the surveillance video, he immediately went to Lydia's apartment. Frank bribed the security guard and hoped he could enter Lydia's apartment to get something, but the security guard said the room was controlled by the police, so Frank could not enter. At this time, Frank saw the building's surveillance camera and immediately got the video recording that night. Only then did Frank discover that after he left, only Nolan had entered the room. This time, Frank understood the origin of the video recording Lydia's murder. At this time, Nolan was at the Independence Day party organized by Victoria and enjoying delicious food. At this moment, a gun was pointed at Nolan. Then Frank brought Nolan into a room and immediately knocked him out. Then Frank pointed the gun at Nolan to force him to ask who told him to do that. Just when Frank was losing patience, there was a voice talking from outside. Frank was afraid that he would be exposed, so he quickly ran away. The person who came in was Emily. Nolan immediately pulled Emily out and said that Frank was here. Frank had not left at all, but he was still standing and watching them from afar. Only then did Frank know that the person who wanted to harm him was not Conrad. The next day, Frank sneaked into Emily's place to look for clues. Emily was startled when she got home. Frank immediately asked who Emily was. A lot of things had happened since Emily came here. Why did Emily hide her time in juvenile detention? Emily didn't call the police right away. Instead, she lifted the carpet and took the phone from the old box on the floor. Then she made a mysterious phone call. Only after receiving a definite answer did she feel relieved. As for Frank, after leaving Emily's house, he went straight to the prison where Emily was previously imprisoned. Frank went to the prison director as a police officer, hoping to get Emily's documents while she was serving her sentence. But the prison director refused because he needed court approval. After sending Frank off, the prison director called to say that he had been fired. On the other end of the line was Emily. Prison director reminded Emily that Frank was not easy to deal with, so she had to be more careful. But they didn't expect Frank to be more powerful than they thought. That night, Frank sneaked into the prison director's office to find Emily's documents. But the photo on the document was of another girl. This made Frank feel very strange, so he took a photo. Then, according to the notes on the document, Frank went to a bar. He saw the girl dancing on the stage. He compared it with the photo in his hand. Frank found that they were exactly the same. Then, Frank used a high price to call the girl into a private room. Frank asked her if she was Emily. The girl said her name was Amanda. She always avoided the question in her words, but the cunning Frank still saw the clue. He was very sure that she was really Emily, right? And the other person was Amanda. The girl did not expect that Frank had guessed the truth, so she had to admit that she was Emily and asked about Amanda's news. Frank took out Emily's photo, and Daniel said that she was living quite well now. Moreover, she was in love with a rich boy. This made the girl feel interested. She said she wanted to find a place to tell him everything. Frank was very excited when he saw that. It seemed like the truth was about to be revealed. Frank eagerly called Victoria to tell her the information he had found. Victoria on the other side received a call from Frank, but she didn't expect that he would only say that Victoria's suspicion was correct. Emily was not the person she said she was. After that, Frank didn't say anything more. This made Victoria feel strange. When she called again, she couldn't get through. At this time, Lydia, who was pushed down from the 5th floor, unexpectedly woke up. It turned out that she wasn't dead but was just in a coma. At the same time, the girl Frank found also came to Emily's house. Emily was very surprised when she saw the girl in front of her. Then, the two hugged each other. The girl said that someone named Frank had discovered their identity swap. After Emily heard this, she immediately hid the girl in Nolan's house. This made Nolan curious, but Emily warned him that the less he knew, the better. Emily told him to be careful not to let the girl out of his sight. Although he did not dare to ask directly, with his keen mind, he discovered blood stains on the girl's coat. That night, Nolan received news of Frank's sudden death. Nolan immediately thought of the girl of unknown origin, but the girl still wanted to deny it. It was not until Nolan took out the results of the bloodstain examination on her clothes and spent Frank's money that the girl had nothing to say. After that, the two met Emily. Nolan learned the truth that Frank had found her and asked her the truth about her identity swap. While Frank was reporting to Victoria, the girl attacked Frank to protect Emily. The girl beat him to death and threw him into the bushes by the roadside. When Nolan heard the news, he immediately felt that he had boarded the wrong boat. Emily took out Frank's phone and asked Nolan to handle it quickly, otherwise he would also be implicated. Then Emily took out a few prepared planes and asked the girl to fly to France tomorrow. They agreed that from now on, the girl would be Amanda and she would still be Emily. Lydia was taken home by Victoria to rest. Although Lydia did not remember anything, she remembered the photo of Emily. Lydia immediately told Victoria about this. When Victoria found the photo, she discovered that the person was not Emily at all. This made Lydia unable to help but wonder if she had a mental problem. But they didn't know that a few days ago Emily had asked Nolan to make an identical photo. Emily took the opportunity to deliver the goods and successfully swapped the photo. After Emily sent Amanda away, the biggest loophole in her revenge plan was finally resolved. resolved. Emily also felt relieved, but Emily didn't expect that the girl wouldn't leave but would return. Emily's next target of revenge was the person who had imprisoned her for more than 10 years. At that time, her father was framed and imprisoned. To protect herself, she pretended to be completely innocent and completely unaware of her father's story. But a writer who was just a small reporter at that time used the name of Seeking Justice for Emily's father to deceive her trust. From there, he obtained important evidence of her father's framed. But as soon as he turned around, he sold the evidence to Victoria and reaped a lot of benefits. It wasn't until Emily went to his bookstore that she discovered that she had been tricked. She then approached him under the guise of a fan. Then she went to the writer's office with Nolan under the guise of an investor. Emily discovered the cupboard was full of her father's videotapes. The writer proudly said that these were video materials of David, the main character in this book. These tapes were all interview records of Emily's father. Emily was immediately interested. After Emily learned that the writer wanted to interview Amanda again, she immediately came up with a plan. Emily found Amanda, who had just returned. Emily asked Amanda to publicly accept the interview. Amanda was in the front, answering the writer's questions. Emily and Nolan hid in the back through headphones to tell Amanda the correct answers. The writer was left speechless by these answers. Emily directed Amanda to launch a surprise attack. She scolded him. Tomorrow's book launch was his last chance to make amends. She hoped he could take advantage of it. Then, without giving him a chance to say more, she quickly left place. The writer seemed to be provoked by Amanda. He planned to reveal the truth of everything at his book launch. Unexpectedly, Victoria came to him the next day to ask about the interview situation between him and Amanda. The writer told the truth that Amanda had discovered the relationship between Victoria and her father. If Amanda continued to investigate and clarify everything, he would become the biggest liar in literary history. As for Emily, sitting below, seeing that the author did not dare to tell the truth, she made a decision. Emily asked Nolan to invite the writer to dinner. Faced with the invitation of the 7th billionaire in Forbes, he had no way of refusing. When they left, Emily sneaked into his office. She smashed the cabinet door and took all the tapes. Then she used a cigarette to set the room on fire. By the time the writer and Nolan returned together, the entire office had been burned to ashes. Of course, none of those precious copies were left. The writer sat on the ground and cried miserably. Behind him was Nolan. Nolan had a triumphant smile on his face. After Emily returned home, she watched her father's interview video over and over again. Unexpectedly, she discovered a horrifying secret. Victoria's youngest daughter was Emily's biological sister. Most of the Grayson family were the masterminds who had harmed Emily's father in the past. From the very beginning of her revenge plan, Emily deliberately approached Daniel. Finally, through a series of plans, Emily successfully infiltrated the Grayson family and became Daniel's fiancée. Now that Emily knew this secret, she had to plan how to maximize her benefits. That day, Conrad and Daniel were having breakfast when a stranger gave Conrad a USB and a note. Immediately after that, Conrad brought his lawyer to find his wife to file for divorce. Victoria was very surprised. Conrad immediately took out a video. The man in the video revealed an affair between Victoria and him. The man hinted that Conrad's current daughter might not be his biological child. Then Conrad said he would go for a DNA test. If the matter was confirmed to be true, Victoria would have to leave empty-handed. Then Conrad immediately went home and took his daughter's hair to do the test. Victoria also hurriedly went to her own lawyer. She wanted him to help her handle the divorce. At the same time, she also began to investigate the origin of the video, because according to the information received, the videotape should have been destroyed in the fire. Now that it has appeared, there is only one possibility. It is Amanda, who is full of hostility towards her. Victoria invited Amanda to have tea and sent her subordinates to secretly investigate Amanda's identity. When Victoria first met Amanda, Victoria began to doubt her true identity, because the Amanda that Victoria knew since childhood was allergic to strawberries. But this girl ate a lot, but still nothing happened. Victoria asked about the videotape. Victoria wanted Amanda to explain, but she said she knew nothing. The more Amanda denied, the more Victoria believed that she did it. Sure enough, that night, Victoria's subordinates sneaked into Amanda's room and found the remaining videotapes in her bag. Seeing that everything was about to be revealed, Emily hurriedly found Amanda and told her about the feud between the Grayson family and Emily. Amanda was afraid of revenge, so she decided to fly to Paris immediately. Emily looked at the time bomb and knew that her true identity had been taken away, so she breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, the DNA test results of Victoria and Conrad's daughter were available. This girl had no blood relationship with Conrad. When Victoria heard this news, she was not surprised at all. On the contrary, Victoria called her lawyer to give him the card Amanda used. Victoria wanted to do a DNA test to compare it with her daughter's DNA. Very quickly, the results were available. Amanda's DNA completely matched Victoria's daughter's. This time, Victoria was sure of Amanda's identity. In the middle of the night, Emily sneaked under a bridge and a figure came. Unexpectedly, it was Victoria's lawyer. It was he who helped Emily swap Amanda's DNA sample. If Victoria were to investigate the real situation, Emily's revenge plan would fail completely. This lawyer was one of the few trustworthy people that Emily's father had specifically mentioned in his letter. Moreover, everything that was happening was planned by Emily. It was Emily who gave Conrad the USB. Because of this USB, Conrad and Victoria started arguing about getting married. It was also Emily who secretly put all the tapes in Amanda's room. This attracted Victoria's attention. At the same time, she scared Amanda away. This was a double-edged sword. It helped Emily solve two hidden dangers at once. But Emily didn't know that there was still a tape that had fallen in Amanda's room. The bar owner, Potter, found it when he cleaned the room the next day. Potter called Amanda and told her to come back to get it, but he couldn't get in touch with her. Potter didn't know that Amanda's phone was controlled by Emily. All the messages and calls were sent to Emily. When Emily found out that there was still a videotape left, she quickly told Nolan to get it, but Potter was very alert. Although Nolan couldn't get the videotape, he clearly saw that the serial number on it was 14. This made Emily panic because the content inside would cause her a lot of trouble. So Nolan came up with another plan. Nolan secretly approached with a degaussing device and secretly erased content inside the tape. But a few days later, Potter came to Nolan and wanted to see the content inside. Nolan thought that the videotape had been erased, so he quickly agreed. Unexpectedly, the videotape could still be viewed normally. As for Potter, after seeing the content of the tape, he was furious and immediately went to Grayson's house. At this time, Grayson's house was holding Emily and Daniel's engagement party. Even Edward Grayson, the head of the family, rarely attended the party. Just when everyone was happily eating and chatting, Potter entered the room. Potter pointed at Victoria and scolded her for being irresponsible. Victoria clearly loved David, but she did not care about their daughter Amanda. Victoria also gave birth to another child with him. Then Potter took out the videotape in his hand as evidence. This stunned everyone in the room. Victoria was so scared that she could not speak. Edward Grayson asked about the authenticity of the incident. Daniel quickly defended his mother. Daniel said that at that time, his mother was forced by him. Conrad criticized Victoria for making up stories. Why was it different from the version he knew? Victoria, now confused, quickly warned Conrad to stop talking. Daniel misunderstood. He said that his mother was right. His sister should not be involved in this matter. This made everyone in the room focus on Daniel's younger sister, and under the pressure of his father, Conrad had to tell the truth. Conrad also told his daughter that her biological father was David. She could not accept that her biological father was a terrorist criminal, so she immediately ran out. The whole family was in a sad mood. Only Emily smiled in her heart. Her plan was ready. Before she could even start again, Potter had helped her carry it all out. Conrad was also pulled aside and scolded by his father. No father would drag his children into such a despicable act. After that, Conrad was immediately stripped of his status as the family's heir. Daniel would be trained to take that position. Victoria was hiding in the dark. When Victoria heard this news, her face, which had been sad just now had a victorious smile. Emily watched the scene of the enemy's family falling apart, and she happily called Nolan. Emily said that Nolan's device was completely unreliable. When Emily returned home, she found that the carpet in front of the box containing all her secrets and her father's relics had been turned over by someone else. At the scene, there was only an invitation card with "Dear Emily" written on it. This really scared her. At this moment, a phone call came in from the other side, saying that the wooden box and Amanda were in his hands. Unexpectedly, it was Tyler, Daniel's friend. Tyler asked Emily to prepare $5 million. They would make the deal tomorrow at parking lot. The next day, Emily was slow to come. Tyler impatiently prepared to call Emily. Suddenly, a gun appeared and pointed it at his head. This person was Emily. Emily tied Tyler to the fence next door. After Emily found her father's box of relics in the trunk, she began to question Amanda's whereabouts. Suddenly, a gun was pointed at Emily from behind. Unexpectedly, it was Amanda. Emily asked why Amanda did that, but she didn't care. Amanda released Tyler and took Emily's money. Emily watched the two leave, and she felt even more confused. After Nolan learned that Tyler had taken the wooden box, he immediately told Emily to run away, because if the contents of the box were made public and Amanda's true identity was revealed, Emily would die a terrible death. But Emily wanted revenge, so she didn't pay attention to that. Then Emily called Daniel. She found out that he was meeting a Japanese businessman named Takeda. When Emily heard this name, she felt close to him. Takeda was Emily's teacher. The wedding day was coming soon. In order to prevent Tyler from disturbing her, Emily prepared for a confrontation. Victoria looked for Daniel, hoping that they could reconcile. But Daniel said he planned to take Emily away and move to Paris. But Victoria was very sure that Emily would not leave. Daniel did not believe it, so he hurriedly found Emily to ask for clarification. But someone with a deep hatred like Emily could not leave. Emily's answer made Daniel immediately believe believe his mother's words. He determined that she was also an ambitious woman. She was with him only for money. He was disappointed and left. Emily was about to chase after Daniel when she was stopped by a strange man. That person was Takeda. Takeda gave Emily a rectangular gift package and said that he had helped her get the box back. In order to get her plan back on track, he had solved part of the trouble for her. He wanted her to keep her father's secret hidden. When he returned, he would tell her the reason. The engagement party quickly began. Victoria immediately invited Daniel to the stage, but no one answered. At this moment, Victoria's daughter's screams came from outside. She cried and shouted that something had happened to Daniel. This time, everyone at the party was terrified. They immediately rushed to the beach to check the situation. Emily was also extremely confused. Emily had never intended to harm Daniel. Emily and Victoria rushed to the scene. A man in a white suit was lying on the ground. Victoria cried and rushed over, but when she got closer, she discovered that the dead person was not Daniel, but Tyler. Everyone immediately breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, they were also wondering why he died here. At this moment, a voice came. Daniel, covered in blood, staggered out from behind the hill. Looking at Daniel's condition, Victoria thought he had killed Tyler. She quickly rushed to hug him and whispered something in his ear. Then, a large number of police officers began to investigate the scene. Victoria and the others were also taken to the police station for questioning. Everyone said that there was nothing unusual at that time. They only said that they saw a figure wearing a gray hoodie. Only Potter's younger brother returned in a panic because he was the only one who could clearly see the man's face at that time, and Potter had just come home at this time. He looked at the blood-stained gray hoodie in Potter's hand. He further confirmed his suspicions. Based on the traces at the scene, the police determined that Daniel had a strong suspicion of murder. Because of Daniel's previous criminal record, the judge not only dared to keep him in a maximum security prison, but also did not allow him to be released on bail. Victoria and her husband, because of Daniel's case, sought out the best lawyer in the United States to defend their son. Through investigation, the lawyer discovered that at the crime scene at that time, there were two witnesses, Daniel's sister and her son's son. According to their account, they saw a person in a gray hoodie running away from the scene. But the strange thing was that all the surveillance cameras did not capture that person and only continuously played back the video of the first 3 minutes of party. It was very clear that the surveillance cameras were controlled by someone else. This also meant that this was a premeditated case. But through the description of the two witnesses, it was impossible to judge whether the person seen was male or female. However, this was not a problem for Victoria and her husband. It was like the murder of Emily's father more than 10 years ago. They planned to let Amanda be the replacement, but the lawyer said that one suspect was not enough, so the two targeted Potter. But Potter had a very high reputation among the local people. If they wanted to convict, they would have to find a mediator to guide public opinion. Emily immediately nominated the writer whose house had just burned down and would arrange it herself. When the writer heard this, he immediately sobered up. He said that the Truth District would definitely do its best. Since the number one suspect, Amanda, was missing, he looked for Potter. He hoped that Potter could tell the truth, but he was chased out by Potter. When he was about to leave, Potter's younger brother chased after him. Potter's younger brother said that it was too dark at that time and he could not see anyone at all. As for Daniel's sister, because she had used drugs that day, the shadow she saw was most likely a hallucination. When the writer received this news, he returned home and began to arrange the article to be published tomorrow. At this time, an anonymous message suddenly appeared on the computer screen. It said, "I know who burned your house." The writer thought it was Amanda, so he quickly asked where she was, but the other party did not answer, but asked him to check the desk drawer. The writer was glad because these were the videotapes he had kept before. In his heart, he was certain that Victoria was the one who burned his house. At this time, Victoria once again went to the lawyer to see if there was any way to bail her son out. The lawyer said there were only two ways to bail Daniel out. One was that a new suspect appeared. The second was that a major incident occurred in the prison that endangered the life of the person concerned. Victoria really had no other way to make up her mind. Through her subordinates, Victoria bribed prison staff. Later, while Daniel was taking a shower, he was beaten to near death by a group of prisoners. The effect was also very obvious. The judge quickly approved Daniel's bail application, but they had not been happy for long when the lawyer said that Daniel might have to return to prison because the writer had revealed that Daniel's sister had used drugs on the day of the incident, leading to her compensation and recantation. They doubted the reputation of Victoria's family. Victoria hurriedly found the writer and threatened him to remove the article and publish an apology. But the writer determined that Victoria was the one who burned down his house, so he could not let her go. He said he would no longer work for her family. This time Victoria had no way to deal with him. Now the testimony of several witnesses had been rejected. Without new evidence, Daniel would be convicted. Victoria, in a deadlock, came up with a unique way. Victoria went to Daniel. Victoria intended to let Daniel harm Emily and put her on the list of #1 suspects, because the pistol that killed Tyler at that time was Emily's. And now, Emily disguised herself as a beautiful girl, drinking and chatting with Victoria's subordinates. Because a few days ago, Emily learned that Victoria wanted Potter to be the one to confess. This made Emily unable to stand aside anymore. Emily asked Nolan to advise Potter to leave this place. But while Nolan was communicating with Potter, he learned an important piece of news. At that time, Potter really went to the crime scene. Moreover, Potter also had solid evidence in his hand, which was the gray hoodie with the victim's bloodstains. So Emily told Nolan to find an excuse to take Potter away. Emily secretly went to Potter's house. Sure enough, she found the shirt. Then she faked the crime scene as a burglary. When Emily returned home, she found that Daniel, who had been banned from going out by the court, was waiting for her at home. He even asked where she had gone. When Emily went out, Daniel discovered her. He called her countless times, but she didn't answer. So Daniel was worried and violated the ban and ran to find Emily. But very soon, the police showed up and took Daniel back to prison. Because Daniel violated the ban, once he was found guilty, his sentence would be increased. When Daniel was about to be brought to trial, Victoria's subordinate was arrested by the police. From the back seat of the police car, they found a hoodie still stained with blood. He was quickly identified as the suspect in this case. When the lawyer arrived at the prison to prepare to take the suspect for questioning, he discovered that the subordinate had left a letter. This person admitted all his crimes. Under Victoria's strong financial attack, Daniel was quickly declared innocent and released. Emily was extremely surprised by all of this. Although the shirt was arranged by Emily, the subordinate's death was something she did not expect. So Emily retrieved the recording in Grayson's house. It turned out that the subordinate immediately called Victoria after being arrested. He threatened that if she did not bring him out, he would tell everything that their family had ever done. After Conrad heard the threat, he immediately found a mysterious person to help. Then the subordinate died in prison. Moreover, through the recording, Emily discovered that her father's death was not as simple as it seemed. Emily discovered that after her father was murdered in prison, the murderer disappeared the next day. In the Grayson sisters' room, Emily accidentally saw a photo of her father taken before he was murdered. Through the photo, Emily discovered that her father should have had a notebook, but all of Emily's father's belongings were transferred by Nolan. So Emily quickly contacted Nolan. After he learned that she was investigating, he hurriedly wanted to transfer the notebook, but he was caught by her. Through studying her father's notebook, she discovered a person nicknamed CM. But according to Emily's investigation, the woman nicknamed CM died of illness the year her father was murdered. But another hospital's list had a woman who met the criteria, and she was still alive. Thinking that she didn't want to miss anything, Emily still went to CM's house. Unexpectedly, Emily saw a photo of Nolan and that woman on the wall. Only then did Emily know that Nolan was raised by CM. Nolan hid the notebook to protect CM. CM was the Grayson Group's private accountant that year. At that time, CM discovered that the Grayson family planned to harm Emily's father, but when CM was about to inform David, he was killed. At the same time, the Grayson family's group was suddenly raided by the police. Even Conrad began to be investigated. When Conrad returned home exhausted, Daniel was waiting for him. Daniel pressed Conrad to ask if he was responsible for his subordinate's suicide. Conrad didn't want to say much, but in order to ease the relationship between the two, he still started with how to harm Emily's father. Conrad told Daniel all the family secrets, but they did not expect that all of this was overheard by Emily. Emily naively thought that Daniel was different from the Grayson family, but at the press conference the next day, Daniel lied non-stop. Daniel even blamed all the crimes on his dead subordinate. Emily had previously sympathized with Daniel, but this time she was completely disappointed. Emily decided to put Daniel on several revenge target lists. Moreover, Emily was more determined to destroy the Grayson family. Emily kept watching Conrad's interview video. She discovered a silver-haired man at the end of the video. She did not expect him to be exactly like the warden who was killed in prison with her father. Emily was very sure that this silver-haired man must have something to do with her father's death. That day, Emily monitored Conrad's office as usual. The silver-haired man did indeed appear. In order to find the man's exact location, Emily sent a video of her and Daniel sleeping together to Conrad. Conrad thought that the silver-haired man was monitoring his family, so Conrad angrily made an appointment to meet him. Emily got their meeting address. Emily was just about to monitor them herself when Daniel and his best friend came to stop her. They came to her to discuss the wedding, but at this moment, her mind was no longer on the wedding. Emily felt that she could not leave, so she hurriedly asked Nolan to follow. Nolan very easily found the silver-haired man's address. Emily made an excuse to chase Daniel and his friend away. Then, Emily equipped herself and went to the address. house. She removed the light bulb outside the house. Just as she was about to break the door to enter, she was called back by a woman. Only then did Emily realize that Nolan had given her the wrong address. Nolan had arrived at the correct address. He had hacked into the area's power grid. He had used the power outage to pose as a repairman and secretly installed a surveillance camera in the silver-haired man's room. At the same time, Victoria went to the police and asked why Conrad had not been arrested yet. In addition, the Grayson group had been investigated earlier because of her accusation. The police chief said that the evidence was not enough to arrest Conrad. Victoria immediately said that if they granted her immunity, she would get all the evidence that Conrad was collusion with the terrorist organization. After Victoria received a positive answer from the police chief, she went to her husband's secret apartment. She saw a painting on the wall that she had given him when she was young. It was a fake, but Conrad had kept it for nearly 20 years. Victoria immediately realized something was wrong, so Victoria took a knife and cut it open. Inside was all of Conrad's evidence. As soon as Victoria got home, Conrad came to her and asked her to show evidence or they would all die. But Victoria didn't want to listen to him. Daniel didn't agree with Victoria's decision. Daniel argued loudly with Victoria. Daniel thought that although Conrad was a bastard, it was still for the good of the family. Victoria was nothing. Victoria was deeply hurt by Daniel, so she had to show him evidence. She wanted to see whose side her son was on. As soon as Daniel received the evidence, he turned around and called Conrad. Daniel's rudeness made Victoria's mood plummet. She left heartbroken. At this time, Nolan had installed a surveillance camera in the silver-haired man's house. Every day, Nolan opened the camera to watch, but suddenly, Nolan discovered that the time in the video and the actual time did not match. Nolan immediately knew something was wrong, but before Nolan could react, the silver-haired man sneaked up behind him, knocked Nolan unconscious, and took him away. It turned out that when Nolan installed the camera, the man discovered it, but he did not say anything because he wanted to investigate who was behind Nolan. Daniel now had evidence, but he went to Emily's house and placed the suitcase on the table downstairs. Emily also saw it. Early the next morning, Daniel heard Emily's screams coming from downstairs, so he rushed down to see. He found the entire first floor in a mess. Emily said that a silver-haired man had broken in and taken the suitcase. Daniel heard it and knew who it was. Daniel quickly found Conrad to tell him about it. Conrad felt bad. The evidence they needed to catch the silver-haired man was gone. Conrad immediately ordered the security staff to conduct a thorough search of the house. As soon as Daniel left, Emily took out the evidence she had hidden. She intended to see the contents of the video results inside, but it was encrypted, so Emily called Nolan for help, but she found that she could not contact him. When she arrived at his house, she only saw the computer on. On the other side, Nolan was tied up by a silver-haired man. He threatened to ask who Emily was and asked her to bring evidence. Emily immediately asked to meet and talk. She said that she had a grudge against her father's murder. The silver-haired man was immediately confused. After Emily got ready, she went to the place where she had met the silver-haired man. Because Nolan's life was in his hands, Emily had to drug herself. When Emily woke up, she found herself in the silver-haired man's base. The man threatened her to tell him the location of the evidence. Then, she read out an address to trick him into leaving. As soon as he left, Emily took out the tool hidden in her sleeve and opened the handcuffs. Emily let Nolan leave first, while she held an axe and quietly waited for the man to return. Sure enough, after the silver-haired man realized he had been tricked, he was extremely angry and hurried back. As soon as he entered, Emily rushed to attack. Perhaps because of his old age or some spiritual reason, an agent like him unexpectedly could not fight back against Emily. He was quickly knocked down. As soon as he knew he was about to be strangled to death, Emily let go and let him go. When Emily got home, Daniel was furious because she kept mysteriously disappearing and reappearing. Emily was also very tired, so she returned the engagement ring on her hand to Daniel. The two had a hard time getting together, but now they broke up. After that, Nolan secretly put all the criminal secrets he had obtained in the trunk of the sheriff's car. After the sheriff got important evidence, he immediately changed his plan. He put Victoria on a private plane and flew to New York. Conrad advised Victoria not to testify, and he warned that if she got on the plane, she would die. But Victoria ignored it, and she resolutely got on the plane. She imagined a beautiful life was calling her. Then she saw the silver-haired man appear in front of the plane. After he manipulated a little and left, the plane crashed shortly after takeoff. Everyone on the plane died. Emily was celebrating the success of her revenge plan when she suddenly saw the news of the plane crash on TV and immediately fell into despair. Could it be that she no longer had hope of revenge in this life? At this time, Nolan came to Emily again. With a serious expression, he said that when he deciphered the evidence, he had copied a copy. These secrets were not simply the Grayson family and the murder of Emily's father. Surprisingly, he discovered information related to Emily. Emily's mother, who had been dead for nearly 20 years, was actually still alive. Above is the entire entire content of Season 1 of the movie Revenge. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you again.